This episode of Adventures in Alchemy is brought to you by the Moon and Magic Planner, 13 Moons of 2020. Plan on magic for 2020. Magic just doesn't happen. You have to plan on it. And this planner has plenty of ideas and spaces for creating magic. It celebrates the moons instead of the months. It follows the cycles of nature. It has pages to share your word of the year, your intentions, an oracle reading for the year. It also has spaces for your incantations, full and new moon rituals, working with waxing and waning moon energy, planner pages to script out your best year, and weekly pages that include the oracle of the week, along with magical notes, spells, and recipes that you may be working with, or experiments, right? And also you can track all of your magical habits here because these habits really build up our own connection to magic in the world. And it's just brimming with magical energy for you to have the most magical 2020 yet. How many times did I say magical? Too many. But go to the show notes and check out the link, or just go to www.dailyalchemy.com and scroll down to about the middle of the page and you'll find a big button that'll take you right there where you can see the brand new gorgeous cover for 2020. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the new rebooted Adventures in Alchemy. My name is Michelle Martin Dobbins. I am the creator of dailyalchemy.com, the Moon and Magic Planner, the 13 Moons this year of 2020, and yeah, lots of other good stuff too. But let's dive into the episode. I want to talk today about, and for me, it's kind of the elephant in the room, and that is the archetype of the witch and why I identify with it. So that's kind of scary for me to say in a way, but I think I've been alluding to this for a good while in my work online. So before we get too far, let's just I wanted to share with you a definition of archetype that I really like, because archetypes are something that are thrown around in a lot of circles. And here's my little disclaimer. I am not an academic. I love school. I loved college. I have half a master's that I quit in between because of different reasons. First one men, second one children. You know how it goes. But I'm not an academic. I love to learn, but I'm also kind of ADHD, not H actually, probably just ADD. And like I said, I've self-diagnosed, so there you go. But I love to learn things, but I'm not your go-to for really academic, deep knowledge. I don't have that. I listen to some podcasts and I learn from some teachers who have that, and they are amazing and I love it. And then sometimes I just have to turn it off for a while because it's too much. So if you like that, deep academic thing, this ain't it. But if you're like me and you like to switch back and forth between people who are just kind of giving you their experiences versus the academic deep learning, then, you can switch to me. And if you're just the person who's hey, I just want to keep it real, fresh, simple. Here you go. So what is an archetype? And I'm stealing this from a website that I like. It is called Lonerwolf. And I haven't done too much reading on it, but a little bit. And, there are those Jungian archetypes, which is not one. I don't know, it can fit under so many, well, not necessarily it can kind of fit under the mother, because, sometimes the stepmother is definitely sometimes a witch, right? In stories and stuff. And then we have, it can fit under sort of the shadow, the trickster, the sage. It's, I'm not going to say anything about Jung and his archetypes. I mean, there are different types of archetypes. And if I'm looking at this website, okay, so we have spiritual archetypes, Jungian archetypes, Enneagram archetypes. Don't get me started on the Enneagram. I love me some Enneagram. Psychological archetypes, male and female archetypes, and like on her website, that is where like the witch shows up under the female. Interesting. And I'm not going to lie, like I know lots of male people who identify with the witch archetype, but I kind of identify with the feminine aspect of it. Carolyn misses archetype and her archetype cards. So there are tons of archetypes. And in fact, I'm going to put a link to this page because this is not mine. This is just something I found when I was just kind of looking up a little bit about archetypes. And there's 100+ archetype lists. So like you might want to play with and see like what kind of archetypes you identify with. There's lots of work that you can do around archetypes. So what is an archetype? That's what I wanted to share with you. And as I said, this is not my definition, but I just thought it was the best that I found when I did a little bit of research. Archetypes are patterns of behavior that aid and influence our mental, emotional, and spiritual growth as human beings. You can think of an archetype as quite literally a type of energy. Ooh, I really like that part. So like everything in life, there are species, genres, breeds, groups that tend to structure existence. An archetype is a quality or essence that forms the underlying framework or consensus reality. Like many pieces in the cosmic puzzle, archetypes are separate and easily definable qualities that compose the whole. And I was like, whoa, that is super cool. So I really just like that thing, though, that an archetype is a type of energy. So that's archetype. Now, witch, ooh, that is a loaded term, right? And it means so many things to so many people. And it's funny because it's actually becoming kind of a popular thing around just, should I say millennials? I don't know, around the younger generation. It's kind of cool and popular to call yourself a witch. So I'm going to look at it as a good thing because I think the archetype of witch is very positive and very positive, like right now for women. And not to say that you can't embrace that if you're a man or if you are non-binary. It's just traditionally in our society, women, non-binary people. And, like this is not to put anyone in a box, but a lot of the male witches I know are gay. And so a lot of the female witches are gay, and that's just, I think it's part of the witch's archetype is like that outcast thing or that on the edges, on the outerly realm of the world, right? We're not like trying to think of a nice way to say this. You're not just not to be unnice, but just, we're not your standard fare, as my kids would say, not the basic people. And I don't mean to put that down, basic people, because a lot of my life I wanted to be one of those basic people. Why do I have to be so weird? Why do I have to be so interested in like strange stuff? Why do I need to be by myself? Why do I have these weird energetic things? Why do I talk to trees? All things that I feel like are really good now that I hated about myself and tried to hide. And I just actually wrote a blog post. I'll put a link. You can check it out about some cocooning that I recently did. I need to just keep lists of these things that I tell you I'm going to give, links that I'm going to give, so I make sure I do it. But it will be below in the show notes. So in cocooning, I really got to this point of like having some issues in my personal growth. And I'm online teaching people about spiritual growth and spiritual alchemy, and like the universe came back and like bit me in the butt with like not being true to who I am, and like just like all kinds of things rained down upon me. And I realized that, there's just a lot of things to untangle for me, and a lot of it was just not having enough bravery and courage to step into who I am. Like who I am is no more special than who you are. But right, we're all special. Yes, former special ed teacher here. Anyway, so I've always been attracted to the archetype of the witch. I've always been attracted to things that are dark. And to me, the archetype of the witch really is this freedom loving person who takes charge of their own life. They're going to make changes in the world. They're going to make changes in their own life. And, in that darker aspect, they may be making changes in other people's lives, but really everything has a ripple effect, right? So you're going to do that. Also, they're not afraid of the dark. They're not afraid of death. They're not afraid of the underworld. And we live in this world of duality, and honestly, there's so much growth that can come from just the realization that, hey, you're going to die. That will put a fire under your ass, right? To do the things in life that you want to do, especially when you start getting some age on you and realize that, hey, that is actually a real thing. So for me, I feel like it's a label that I have embraced since I was first grade. I have my favorite book from childhood here, and I actually put a link to it. It's called Dorian the Witch Doctor, and I think that if I'm remembering correctly, I got it when I was in first grade. It's a battered copy. It has a place of honor up in our little magic room in our house. Magic room. I don't know. What do I call it? I'll have to do a tour of that room and put it up on YouTube or something like that. Anyway, it's just one of the first things that I remember making me fall in love with that archetype of the witch. And it's just this sweet, charming story of this girl who is a witch, and it's not dark or scary or anything. And it's just, I don't know, for some reason, I just loved it so, so much. And I've always just really, really, really dug into that archetype before I knew what archetypes were, just that label of witch. And I kept it kind of undercover all through my childhood, but every little book that I could buy that had anything good, bad, or ugly about a witch or the occult or any of that stuff. Always been a big, big fan of cemeteries. I love going there, then and now. And I kind of kept to that until in my early 20s. I really kind of switched over to more of a new agey. I started going to a Unity church. I still love Unity churches. But for me, the problem came when I embraced only the light and not the dark. And, it's you look at the yin and the yang, the yin and the yang, the yin yang. You have to have, in this world, right? We have the light, we have the dark, we have the masculine, we have the feminine, and what we need is balance. And the witch to most people is a more darker aspect. And I kind of think that's why it's getting so popular, because we've been focusing so much on love and light that we really need to look at those shadow aspects and what we've tried to hide and run from. And that is such a healing thing. So I've kind of went off, but that to me in a nutshell, what a witch is to me is a person who stands in their own power and uses their own power to create change in their world. Now, there are so many people who take on this word witch, and it means so many different things. In some cultures, a witch is not even a human. Humans can't be witches. They're a spirit. And then, there are the Wiccan witches, and it's very interesting because when I started, 4 or 5 years ago, really more embracing that word in my head again after I had pushed it away, I started taking some classes, reading some books, as I am known to do. And it was interesting to me because you will find every person will tell you something else, right? They will say, oh, witches are evil, they worship the devil. And then you'll have someone who's like, I'm a witch and we don't even believe in the devil. And then you'll go in this class and you'll be like, oh, let's sit here and visualize Lucifer's sigil. And I was raising my hand hey, I thought you didn't believe in the devil, so I'm confused. So guess what? Like everything that you have heard is probably true for somebody, right? For somebody. Everybody who embraces that title, whether or not they actually embrace like that archetype, there's so many different facets. And that's something, and when I wrote that blog about the cocoon, that I've really thought about it, because when I started going towards like the more love and light spiritual community, away from the darker aspects that really resonated with me, it was kind of because some of the people in that community of like a witchy community really had some lack of personal growth, right? And I was like, this like, because for me, the whole thing is like, let's get to the end and grow and be a better person. And yeah, it's cool to have things in your life, but if you're not the person who has those things, you can't have those things. That made no sense. But what I'm saying is like, if you don't have a certain depth of character, you're not going to have a great love relationship in your life, because it takes that depth of character. And you can't always put it off on the other person if you've had 10 relationships and they all sucked, right? Or, oh, I attract the wrong person all the time, or there's no good people out there. And hey, honey, it's you. And I'm not being mean. I've had to say that to myself in lots of situations, right? So I felt like the vein that I was running in of that, there was a depth of character. And then so I went over to the Love and Light Foundation. And guess what? I found the same thing. I'm like, oh, holy crack. So I decided to stick with the archetype that really, really fits me and be myself. And then hang with the people who not only do the spiritual work, but also have, good personal growth work. And I've found that it's like in every community, there are people who are really like living it, doing the work, being balanced. And there are people who are not, Same thing in Christianity, because I did embrace that for a time, especially as a child. I was just very spiritual. I still am very spiritual. I'm just seeking like, how do I make sense of these spiritual things in my life? And, you can go to a church and you can find people who are walking that path, and it's very easy to find people who aren't. I'm almost like feeling like the 80-20, and like there is no scientific evidence for this. This is just me, me telling you my thoughts. So I feel like 80% of the people got some work to do. I mean, we all have, we're humans, but 20% are like really walking whatever path they're on, be they religious or spiritual or atheist or whatever, but are really like, I'm not like a person to quote the Bible, but there is that phrase in the Bible, like you judge someone by their fruits, or you shall know them by their fruits. Like that has been something that I've really tried to dive into, in being discerning and deciding like, hey, do I want to take a class from this person? Hey, do I want to go to a workshop from this person? Hey, do I want to hang out with this person? Hey, do I want to marry this person? Like the whole thing. Like you can be deceived by people, and I just said you can be deceived by people, not people can deceive you. And they can try to deceive you, but if you're looking at their fruits, and also part of their fruits to me is their energy, because I'm just an energetic, I feel energies. And so like, that's how I evaluate people. And so like some people I'm like, And then people are like, well, what do they do? I feel yuck around them. And that's just that. But like, also like, how do they treat people in the world? And like, what do you feel like when you're around them? That's another feeling one. And like, what are the outcomes of their actions? And so you can very much tell, hey, is this the right person or not? So I've kind of gone off a little bit, but so to circle back around to the archetype of the witch, I just really wanted to kind of explain myself and where I'm at, because it is an archetype that I embrace, and it's an archetype that I've tried to push away a lot. And I've questioned myself. At first I was like, oh, I try to push it away because people will think I'm scary and mean and evil. And that has happened. And then also I realized this new layer recently because I've tried to open more towards like actually sharing the spiritual practices I do and kind of sharing that I embrace that archetype and I embrace that label. And I realized that one of the things that I feared was ridicule. So I am been sitting with that and like, hey, it's okay. I invite you to laugh at my archetypal decisions. I invite you to laugh at my labeling myself a witch, and it's okay. For me, it's something that obviously my daughter and I have been having these big talks lately. One of my daughters, I have 3, but my oldest daughter and I have been talking a lot about free will and like how free will is, because I've gone to 4 different psychics over at least 4, probably 5 over like the past 10 years or so. I'm like not a huge crazy person with psychics. And when I say psychics, some of them were just legit psychics or mediums and others were like more like shamans and spirit workers. It's something I usually do once a year just to kind of check in and see like what kind of feedback I can get. And it's like every single one is like, oh, you're a witch. And I've had one that's like, please don't get upset, but you're a witch. And then I've had one tell me, you are a powerful woman. I'm like, did the word witch come up? Well, yeah, but that's just a metaphor, or archetype as the case may be. And then I also had one say, well, I'm getting witch, but that's just a wise woman or a healer, so don't get stressed. And it's something that I've decided to embrace. And so what does that mean? Well, I'm not going to carry a broom with me everywhere and always wear black, although sometimes I do both. No, I'm just kidding. No, I do wear black a lot. And I'm not going to necessarily be doing those things, but I'll be doing really everything that I have been doing, which is kind of funny. Everything that I've been doing for the past few years, working with plants, working with sigils, working with ancestors, working with spirits, everything is pretty much the same, except for I can be more open and just like feel like I can settle into my own self and my own energy and not like try to figure out, because I think I've tried to judge different audiences and be like, is it okay for me to talk about sigils here? Is that going to make people jump ship? And I've decided, whoa, that's really kind of stupid on my part, right? Because if you jump ship, that means I'm not your person and you're not my person. And that's cool because there are a lot of people in the world. So I figure I'm telling people to like step into their own energy, claim their own energy, and I should claim mine. So, one of the energies that I really resonate with is this archetype of the witch. I also resonate with the archetype of the alchemist. To me, it's kind of like the witch is like the more wild and free and just like do what you gotta do thing, and the alchemist is like that more learned, the more one is to me is more masculine, one's more feminine. That might just be because of that's just typically how they're portrayed. And obviously also like in history, the alchemist had to have, it was probably in most societies a white male or just a male who had privilege of being able to read and write and have money and have education and scientific equipment, right, to do these kinds of things. So I really do like both, and lots of other things too as well, because I love some of the love and light stuff, and I love me some Reiki and all those things. So I just didn't want to keep going on and like hiding or dancing and skirting around the fact that I really embrace that witch archetype and that label for myself. It's something that I've called myself inside my brain. Well, I started doing it when I was in first grade. And then I pushed it away for, I don't know, somewhere 10, 15 years and then really started embracing it. But it's funny because when I pushed it away, I still just like reached out for spiritual ways to be. And they just like weren't quite right for me, but I felt like they were more okay, more accepting, more societally acceptable than that label of witch. So yeah, that's part of me. I love the occult. I love witchy stuff. I love alchemy. I love plants. I love ancestors. I love a lot of things. So those are the things that I'm going to be sharing about, the things that I do to put magic in my life. And I've kind of been playing around with like, what is my ultimate goal in life? Because I was looking at that and it was like, what is my goal? And, like, what am I here to do? Especially work-wise, like, what problem do you solve? And the problem, and I was listening to this thing and people were talking about, the problem of unhappiness and bringing people happy. And I was like, oh yeah, I like that. But see, that kind of fits in that basic model. And I don't mean that to be ugly, but like, for me, happiness entails a good life. But if it was just like, oh yeah, I have money, I have cars, I have a husband, wife, well, I don't necessarily need both, but you know what I'm saying? I have a good relationship. I have all these good things in balance. Without magic, it just wouldn't be fun for me. So I think it was Gordon White on Rune Soup who talks a lot about return to enchantment. And I know a lot of other people in like the world of magic and witchcraft and occult talk about that, returning the enchantment to the world, because to me, without enchantment and without magic, the world's just boring. And I'm really sorry to say that. I mean, I'm not sorry to say that. I shouldn't even apologize for that. That's just me, but I don't watch football, so maybe that's the problem. But I want to live a life where we all see magic and synchronicity. And I guess I shouldn't say we all, I should just claim it for myself. But I feel like there's others like that too, that really want to see that they can have an impact on their world, that they can see beyond their five senses, that they can see the synchronicities at work, that they can see that there's more than just us here, and that there's these really cool energies and cool, that you can work with your ancestors and crazy stuff will happen. And it just makes life more interesting to just connect like this web of, I don't know how, I feel like probably science is somehow going to see like how we all connect and how this stuff comes together at some point in time. But right now, I just want to live in that magical world. And I think this world is magical and we've just decided not to see it. So I think that's why I really, really embrace the archetype of the witch. And whether or not you embrace that archetype, you're always welcome in the land of daily alchemy. You can always pick and choose what you like. And then if you're like, yo, lady, you too far out there for me, that's cool too, right? It's always good to like pick and choose. And I've done that myself, is like, there have been teachers that I have followed and I've just took in all their stuff. And like, sometimes I'm like, you went on a turn that I can't follow you. Or sometimes I was just like, I have integrated this energy and now it's time to look for new energy. So with that being said, I did not do my charming at the beginning. I think I was nervous about bringing up this topic. So retroactively, I'm claiming that everybody who listened to this got what they need from it, and that I was of service, and that I was a channel for source energy. And yeah, so let's all go out and follow our passions and embrace the archetype that calls to us the most, whatever that is. And, more than one archetype as well, whatever fits our needs and helps us grow as people. Let's be the change in the world change-making descendants. Let's be future exalted ancestors. And let's go live magically in the now. All right. Big hugs, and I will talk to you soon. Hey there, it's me again. I forgot to tell you the experiment. I did say last episode that I was going to start giving you guys a short experiment like I do with myself and the members of the Daily Alchemy Premium Members Lab, which is currently closed but will reopen in January. So here's your experiment. Research archetypes and find one or two that resonates with you. Probably just like the one that resonates deepest, I think would be best. And then, I'm sorry, my dog is whining and yawning in the background. It just happens. Anyway, so find one. You can find that link in the show notes that gives you Lonerwolf's article that has a lot of different type of archetypes shared there. And then the second step, I try to give you a metaphysical step and a physical step. So the metaphysical step is to meditate on the energy of the archetype for a few minutes a day, at least for a week. Just kind of step into and like, what does that energy feel like to me? Or, if you're a visual or auditory, look like here, like just step into like connecting with that energy of that archetype. And then for the physical, find and carry a touchstone for the archetype to remind you to tune into that energy as you go through your day. So it could be a small pentacle for the witch archetype or a little paintbrush for the artist archetype. I know some of them aren't like real obvious, but it doesn't matter. It could be a crystal, a rock, a picture, anything that holds meaning for you. So play with that and let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear about it. All right, take care. See you on the next one.